This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Episode 171 of the Detroit Sports Podcast is now available for download. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my cousin, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz? What's happening?
Absolutely nothing, sir. What's going on with you?
Oh, it's a good day, man. Feeling good recording this podcast. Great hour and 20 minutes I get to spend with you, rapping about all things Detroit sports. Get a chance to interact with everybody out there via our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. So I'm looking forward to what is going to come ahead in this very hour. What do we got going on today, sir?
Oh, we've got a ton. Jam-packed podcast today. You know, we're going to be talking about your Detroit Tigers. There's a whole bunch swirling around them. Of course, we've got a great episode of Jock Jams where Doc brings and presents multiple questions for me, myself, and I. And, you know, I hit those bad boys out of the park because that's just what I do. And we're going to kick this show off with your Detroit Lions, a team that went to bed on Saturday night in second place, tied for second place, I should say, and basically by the time the 4 o'clock games rolled around, this team had sole possession of first place in the NFC North. I can't believe it. I don't know about you, but totally shocking that this team, a team that after week 4, I was ready to bury. I wanted them to go so far away. I wanted them to hop aboard a plane, fly to Antarctica, and hopefully that plane would just crash somewhere over the Atlantic, and we wouldn't have to deal with this team anymore. Headed into, what is this now, week 11? This team has sole possession of first place in the NFC North, looking to hang on to it and possibly get a home playoff game. A home playoff game? What? A home playoff game?
Hey, that's unbelievable.
Exactly. I know. It's crazy. I don't know about you, man, but do you believe this team can do it? Do you think they can hold on to the NFC North and sit there and get that home playoff game? Something that I know you haven't seen one of those. I haven't seen one of those. It's been a long time.
It's been quite a bit of time, man. And everyone's getting excited. Slowly but surely, people are getting that confidence. And when you look ahead, who's next up on the docket? Jacksonville. That's a team that maybe we're all hoping that if this one's not a close game, we're hoping that they go out there and destroy a team that really game by game is looking to, you know, try to make some minor improvements to keep their head coaching staff in place. But, you know, that team, Jacksonville, has really fallen off. And, you know, Blake Bortles is looking like a guy that might end up being a bust. They might replace him. But speaking of the Lions, it's a great situation where when you lay out the cards and what's going to happen, you got all the rest of your division games at home at Ford Field. The next two are, you know, in Detroit. You got Jacksonville. You turn around quickly, and then you got to play Minnesota, and they're scuffling. So things are looking good. And for the Detroit Lions and their fans, it's a great situation to be in. And all you can do is do what the coach says, is just look ahead to Jacksonville. The bye week came at a perfect time. I think it's a good chance to potentially get back Darius Slay. A much improved and rested Ziggy Ansah might force some more sacks and some more defensive pressure. Then you got, hopefully, you know, more the receivers and Matthew Stafford and that offense can collectively, you know, regroup and push forward and make this final push really successful. I'm excited. I think that, you know, when you look at it, it's also something where, you know, you get a little bit, you kind of taper your expectation a little bit because it's not only that the Lions are playing decently, but the rest of the division is just god-awful. Minnesota's, you know, in flux a little bit, dealing with injuries. Green Bay doesn't look like themselves. They don't look like they're playing very confidently. Chicago, as long as they're led by Jay Cutler, they're going to always struggle. So right now, you're taking advantage of what's in front of you, but you have to go out and do it. You cannot, absolutely, in no shape or form, go out there and lose to Jacksonville. That would be a really bad loss.
On top of that, you might be getting probably one of your best defensive players back at some point later on this season. He might be back for this game coming up this weekend against Jacksonville. DeAndre Levy may be coming back sooner than expected. If so, that's a great sign. Again, he's the one guy who can help you cover a tight end, and the tight end has killed this team all season long. On top of that, I want to touch on something that you brought up. The rest of this division.
My God.
Look, Alshon Jeffrey has now been suspended for 4 games for taking PEDs. I don't know if he knew or not, but his PED performance isn't going to help Jay Cutler. And that's the real problem with the Chicago Bears is Jay Cutler. So Chicago's an absolute dumpster fire. All right, so I don't think we have to worry about them. Now, Minnesota has basically been bitten by the injury bug before the season ever started. You lost your starting quarterback. You lost your starting Hall of Fame running back in Adrian Peterson. And they were holding together for the first 5 games of the season. And now their offensive line is deteriorating, and Sam Bradford has basically regressed to what Sam Bradford has been his entire career. Not good. That team is falling apart at the seams, and it has nothing to do with any one player. It's just injuries are now mounting, and this team can't overcome them. And now Green Bay does not look like the Green Bay of old. Whether it's Aaron Rodgers, Mike McCarthy, maybe it's injuries with that team because they too are dealing with their own injuries. The defense doesn't look good. The offense doesn't look good. So I want to go a little bit deeper here, and I want to look at Minnesota's schedule to kind of start off. Minnesota still has to play the Arizona Cardinals, the Dallas Cowboys, and the Indianapolis Colts, plus Green Bay still. So they've got a tough road ahead of them as their season starts to kind of come to a close and wind down. Now move over to Green Bay. Green Bay is going to be playing the Redskins. Green Bay is going to be playing the Eagles in Philadelphia. They're also going to be, like I said, they're going to play the Redskins at Washington. They also have to take on the Seahawks, and they'll be traveling to Chicago. And you know Chicago absolutely hates Green Bay, so they get up for that game no matter what. Green Bay's got a little bit of a difficult schedule as well, which now brings me back to your Detroit Lions. Can they hold on to first place in the NFC North? I absolutely believe they can, and the schedule sets up for them to do so. The interesting thing is going to be they've got 7 games left for the rest of the season. If they go 4-3, which is something that me and you discussed last week on the podcast, because we both believe when they go on the road to play teams like the New Orleans Saints, like the New York Giants, and they're going to be taking on the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas, those are all games that we sit there and initially we pencil in as an L. Now, New Orleans, by no great shake, is any good. They're just not. But it's a road game, and the Lions aren't as good of a team on the road as they are at home, like most teams in the NFL. I think Detroit stands a puncher's chance against New Orleans. That offense is high octane, but that defense is absolutely brutal. Whereas the Lions can sit there and I think they can match them blow for blow on offense, and I think their defense is a little bit better. So I think special teams will kind of come into play for that game. And now when you go to travel the Giants, I think the Giants are just a much better team than your Detroit Lions at this point. And I think they have a little bit too much firepower on both sides of the ball. I think Detroit takes an L there. Same thing with the Cowboys. So back-to-back weeks, you're going on the road and you're traveling to New York and then you're traveling to Dallas. I just think you lose those 2 games back-to-back to finish your season up with Green Bay, which will become a pivotal game coming down the stretch in Week 17. And at this point, Green Bay does not look like a very good team, and I think Detroit can beat Green Bay, which then sets you up for your 4-3 finish, maybe a 5-2 finish. Now, I know I'm getting a little ahead of myself because you got to take care of a team like Jacksonville, who you can absolutely not falter against this week. You can't lose this game to Jacksonville. Otherwise, everything that we're talking about right now, just put it in a brown paper bag and go set that on somebody's porch and set it on fire because it's absolute shit then.
Yeah, the sad part is no one really would be that shocked if the Lions went out there on Sunday and laid a dud. That's the part that when you were talking, I kind of got to thinking is that in order for the Lions really to meet their goals, stay atop the division, and have some success in the postseason is to continue to get better as a football team. If they stay status quo like they did in the first half, then you're going to see them struggle and play super tight games, and there's going to be some losses mixed in. But if everybody can get better, if Matthew Stafford can continue to be consistent, if the defense can get more pressure and cause more turnovers and limit the big plays and figure out how to cover tight ends.
And get healthy down the stretch here because the defense is brutally beat up.
If everything goes their way and they continue to get better as a football team, then each and every game, probably the one game I pinpoint and I go, it's going to be super tough because of the sheer talent and the matchup nightmares that you're going to have is versus Dallas on the road. That game going into it, I would say is going to be really, a tough game where you got to really play your absolute best in order to come away with the victory. But every other game, I could say you're going to be in most games. I mean, the Giants, seriously, you could get to Eli Manning and force some turnovers. You said it, the rest of the division isn't that strong. New Orleans might present some challenges offensively and keeping up with them, especially on the road. But in any situation, if the Lions play their solid game and they play within, the confines of the scheme that they got, I would think that they're going to be in the majority of the games. And when you ask the question, is this team going to win the division? I'd say at this point in time, yes, they will. I think that they got enough talent, and I think that they're trying so hard to shed the moniker of SOL that they want to move forward. And there's enough talent and enough returning talent to do some things, as well as the rest of the schedule isn't as daunting as, some of the rest of the teams in the division. So I'm putting my faith that this team and this collection of talent, this group in 2016, is the team that we can put our trust in, and they won't let us down. It's a new group. It's a new era. It's time for some more expectations, and why not us? I mean, with what's going on in the landscape, sporting-wise, with the Cubs and the Cavaliers winning, then you got the Indians and the Cubs in the World Series. You got an outsider winning the White House. Why not the Detroit Lions to make some waves in the postseason? They have enough to do it. It's just to go out there and actually execute it. And so I'm hoping that this bye week is not one of those things where they, spend time just playing PS3 and vacationing, and they actually hit the film room hard this week and really prepare for Jacksonville, because I think this game is a game where you can actually thump them. You could thump this team. You can go in there and drop 45 on them and win 45-21.
This is a team that should never overlook an opponent, because at any given point, they can get popped by anybody. I mean, Jacksonville's a prime example. This is a game that they regularly will lose because whether they overlook the opponent, whether they don't prepare well for the opponent, or they're just surprised by something, this is usually a game that sits there, comes back, and bites them in the butt. I mean, we all took the Tennessee game for granted. And look, if they would have won that game, look at how much further they would have been ahead of everybody else in this division. They absolutely have no wiggle room right now as it sits. They've got to go in and they've got to play hard-nosed football every single week and take every challenge as it comes and don't look past any opponents. Again, like you said, if the talent can get healthy, if these guys can sit there and prepare well and go out there and execute on the field, they have a great chance of retaining the NFC North, winning a division, and getting a home playoff game, and then maybe taking care of some business. You're right. The game against the Cowboys, early in the season, I would have said it's a coin flip. Absolutely, it's a coin flip game. Detroit may be able to go down there and may be able to handle some things, but no. You've seen what Ezekiel Elliott has grown into. You've seen the maturity that Dak Prescott has shown on the field, and just the command of that offense, that those two players and what they bring onto the field is exceptional. And now you add to that a defense who can sit there and play some good football. I mean, look, the defense isn't great for Dallas, but it's not horrible either. It's pretty solid. I think Matt Stafford might struggle a little bit playing in the Jerry Dome, and I just don't see the Lions getting a win there. But if they can sit there and take care of the business week by week, day by day, and show up to the field and execute every single Sunday for the rest of the season, I don't see any reason they lose the NFC North, because Green Bay's not very good, and Minnesota's not very good, and we've already covered what a debacle Chicago is. Now, speaking of some of that talent, a big reason this team's in first place right now is because of a guy named Matthew Stafford. On Sunday afternoon, CBS came out and they reported that he's looking for a $25 million a year extension. The other day, he came out and he said, well, that's news to me. He's like, I didn't know I wanted that much. He said, I'd love to stay in Detroit, but I didn't know I wanted that much. Is Matthew Stafford worth $25 million every single season? I think so. At this point, the way he's playing, he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL right now. He has throwing for a ton of touchdowns. He's turned the ball over very little. And I know this kind of plays into your hand with what you hate. It's a lot of dump offs. It's a lot of 6-yard passes. It's a lot of, slant and goes, and just they don't sit there and take a shot down the field. And I know that bothers you, but it has helped this team win ball games. The only reason this team's in first place right now is because of Matthew Stafford and what Bob Cooter has been able to do with him. And now, I don't know if this is more Matthew Stafford finally understanding how to play football, understanding what is asked of him, maybe him just being put in a better spot, or if it's all just Jim Bob Cooter sitting there being a QB whisperer. I can't tell you. I don't know. I think it's some combination of both of them. And Bob Quinn has come out and basically said, look, if for some reason something crazy does happen where, Jim Caldwell's on the outs, Jim Bob Cooter's not going anywhere. He's gonna be staying here. So it already sounds like they've got their mindset that Matthew Stafford, Jim Bob Cooter, it's a package deal. So in my estimation, I absolutely believe he's worth it because he's already won you 5 games. He's the only reason you are in this situation right now as it stands?
Man, this is the toughest question that the Lions are going to be faced with. I mean, I really do believe they're going to evaluate fully this year. I know that his contract runs out at the end of next year, but the reports are they're going to work diligently to try to get the deal done in this offseason. Stafford's numbers warrant big-time pay. Now, the questions you're going to ask are, is he going to live up to the contract that he signs? If it's $25, $26 million, I mean, right now, you could really say that Matthew Stafford might, just for the rest of the year, gamble on himself a little bit more. Get a playoff win, maybe get 2 playoff wins. You make an appearance in the NFC championship game. My goodness, maybe, just maybe, you play well, you get some breaks, you end up in the Super Bowl. This guy could command upwards of $26 to $27 million. So they're going to wait probably till the end of the year. His numbers this year are amazing. His 8th year, completing 67.3% of his passes, 2,373 yards, 18 touchdowns versus 5 interceptions. The thing that I think a lot of people are also looking at is he's becoming the leader of this team. You don't come back in all the games that you've won. And you got to remember, this team has been behind in every single fourth quarter of every single game they've played this year. And they've come away with 5 wins and 4 losses, to show for it this year. So this is the guy that you're going to trust with this organization. He's squeaky clean in terms of his image, very politically correct, is a guy that you could invest in and feel pretty comfortably that you can name him the face of the organization. The part that is just so difficult is that how do you project what's going to happen when the fire is the absolute hottest? How are you going to predict when Matthew Stafford shows up to the postseason if they should make it there this year? And what's he going to do in that fourth quarter in a tough game? You've seen a couple moments now versus New Orleans and Dallas that you could say that it was more of a team loss than it was particularly Matthew Stafford. Obviously, he didn't play his best games in those 2 appearances that he's made in the postseason, but you have to look at, okay, when the fire is the hottest in the games that you play in the postseason.
Do you mean Chicago and Tennessee?
No, I'm talking about when the Lions
in the playoffs.
The Lions have been in the postseason twice, I believe, in his tenure.
Yes, you're right.
New Orleans was a loss. That wasn't a great game.
Absolutely, you're right.
And then you had Dallas, and some people are pointing to that his play wasn't the greatest in the fourth quarter of that game.
He can't win the big one.
Can't win the big one. You got to look at it as I want to see him go on the road. Go on the road versus a tough team like a Dallas and maybe in the postseason if that's the matchup and go there and do some things. So how do you predict that? Because here's the biggest thing is that if you're going to invest $25 to $27 million in a guy, you're almost expecting at least a Super Bowl caliber performance. What if you get stuck with, not to insult him, but what if you get stuck with an Andy Dalton where you get to the postseason, first round loss? Is that what you're going to really want back from that? No, the return on the investment, it's got to be. The question you got to ask is, okay, once that ink is dry and he signs that D with the little cursive, do you think this Lions team could win a Super Bowl under the tutelage of Matthew Stafford? That's the question you got to now ask. It's not going to be, hey, are you the best quarterback that the Lions have ever had? Are you going to be a leader? No, the question's going to be, and the expectation needs to be, is this quarterback going to take you to a Super Bowl? I just have, I feel, a little bit skeptical, and I think I'm right. It's just I just got to see more of it. And if he does it once this year, that doesn't mean next year with turnover and things like that that's going to continue. So when you pay someone that much money, I'm looking at a quarterback in Dallas where they built an offensive line. They went out and got a stud running back, and their quarterback's check for the whole entire year is $600K. $600,000 is the entire salary for Dak Prescott. And so you look at that versus the rest of the league, and you go, wow, what value they got for that guy. So they're going to sign him. The numbers I can't wait to see, and then I can't wait to see what's going to be the impending result of that move. Who's going to have to be let go? Are you going to be able to sign a Ziggy Ansah to an extension when his due? Because you gotta find ways to. Because I don't believe the systems are in place yet. Offensively, it's better. I think that you can plug and play different pieces to that offense. The defense is not plug and play system ready yet. You need more talent.
Let me give you some numbers. Since it became the Matthew Stafford, Jim Bob Cooter package deal since last November, Stafford has the 4th best passer rating at 103.4. He's got the 2nd most touchdowns, 38 of them in 18 games, and the 6th best interception ratio. All of that since having an offensive line that's been in complete flux, rotating guys in, benching guys, getting new guys in, getting first-round draft picks put into place, third-round draft picks put into place, giving up 48 sacks over that time period.
I just kind of wish Stafford would be like, listen, I'll take 22. 22 a year for take 22 and extend it out. 25, 26 is a ton of money.
All right, so let me ask you this, all right? Those are the numbers in the last 18 games that he's played. Those are incredible. Those are awesome. Those are Pro Bowl worthy. Those are Drew Brees. Those are
top-of-the-line numbers.
Low-end Tom Brady. Those are Pro Bowl numbers for a quarterback, okay? If Jim Bob Cooter is this QB whisperer, he can do it with anybody then, right? That would be the thought process. Do you then turn around and in the offseason, do you take this quarterback who has put up Pro Bowl numbers, looks like an absolute stud, looks like the playbook finally makes sense to him and the game has slowed down? Do you turn around and do you flip him and try to get a Herschel Walker deal where you can get multiple draft picks, you can get a different player at a different position possibly, and sit there and save yourself some salary cap space? Or do you sit there and do you ink him to the deal? Because, look, quarterback it's hit or miss. It absolutely is hit or miss. You know, just because you're a first-round draft pick doesn't mean anything. The best quarterback in the league right now, probably in all of history, Tom Brady. I'll argue with you. Tom Brady is the best quarterback to ever lace up a pair of cleats and throw a football. He was a 6th-round draft pick. If he was that good and everybody knew he was going to be that good, why did it take the Patriots until the 6th round to pick him? Because nobody knew. His own college football coach didn't know. That's why he sat there and he rotated him in with Drew Henson all the time. Getting a quarterback who is exceptional at what they do is very difficult. But now the Detroit Lions are put in a spot now where Bob Quinn has to make a decision. Do I believe this much in a guy like Jim Bob Cooter where he can sit there and take a guy who underachieved, underperformed for the first 8 years of his career and turned him into a Pro Bowl player, a player who might be able to take our team to a Super Bowl, a guy who can sit there, well, at the way it's going right now, definitely going to get them into the playoffs? Or do I flip him and let Jim Bob Cooter sit there and bring in that next wave, get a guy like a Dak Prescott and see what he can do? Do I pay the money or do I roll the dice and risk it and go out and try to draft the next quarterback, the next great thing for the Detroit Lions?
It's tough because not only has Matthew Stafford done a lot of things, he's just really heads and tails better than anyone else at his position that the Lions have ever had. So how do you justify trading him unless you got a huge haul? And at this point in time, those trades just really aren't made like that anymore. Can you think of a massive football trade that's made? It's usually 1-for-1 or for draft picks. So
generally, football trades don't happen unless it's right around the draft. And you're right, it's for the draft pick.
In terms of value, you probably have to get a couple first-round picks next year, the year after, and a solid player. And that's just not something that a lot of teams are just going to be willing to do. And I don't think the Lions are in that position. I think they're fully satisfied that he's the guy, and they're just now going to hunker down and look at what's the number going to be. They're going to hammer it out, and I think they're going to make the deal. I don't see, unless, like I said, he throws 4 picks in a playoff game, then all bets are off. But I don't see that happening because the way the offense is tailored right now, I don't see them giving him a chance to throw the ball that much. That's the part that I would like to see, is if they, took the reins off a little bit and let him do some things, could he do it? But they're tightening the reins. They're going within the scheme and the parameters of their offense. But yes, you sign Matthew Stafford. He's not going to be traded. I fully expect him to be a Lion for the next 10 or so years. And we'll have these discussions on the podcast as to, hey, is he living up to the $25 to $27 million he's getting? And the expectation is going to be higher. But I think if you're going to look at a guy that would be worthy of it and where we're at right now and what we're seeing, there's one guy, and that's Matthew Stafford. And I think he's got the potential. If you've seen his 8th year, most people didn't think he was going to do this with these kind of numbers. And, hey, he could even get better. There's still that chance, you could argue, and the book is not closed of him getting even better. And that would be a great thing for the Lions. So at this point in time, I would sign Matthew Stafford, but I still would have some question marks. But, at this point in time, there's nothing foolproof. In this market and with what's going on in the league, you would take a chance on Matthew Stafford. And I think at this point in time, he's overcoming, I think it was 50-50 at the beginning of the year. I would say if you polled most people, 60% would be in favor of him being the Lions guy for the next 10 years, 60-40.
While you're talking, I want to sit there and I thought about a role play that we could do real quick. Put on your Bob Quinn hat for me. All right, you got your Bob Quinn hat on, and I've got my Cleveland Browns helmet on. All right, because we all know they're special. Comes with a drool guard and everything. So now I'm the Cleveland Browns. I've had just as much, if not more, futility over the career of my football team than you have. That being said, I've got a coach that I firmly believe in, even though he sat there and he rolled 3 and 4 quarterbacks out the other night. I want Matt Stafford. I think Matt Stafford is the difference between my team being in the bottom of the NFL to being a top 5, top 10 football team. So I want to make a trade for Matt Stafford because we all know I've got some draft picks because I just traded away the top pick last year. So I've got a couple of draft picks that I want to give you. I'll give you this year's upcoming my number one draft pick. I'll give you next year's number one draft pick, and I'll even throw in a third-round draft pick for Matt Stafford. Do we have a deal?
No. Here's what's going on.
That's two number ones in the third round.
Yeah, what's the top position in the NFL? What's the position that gets everybody excited? What's the position that you probably need a guy to do some things? And that's the quarterback position. And you've got a guy that you've molded, and you got a guy that's pretty much ready-made for the system that you're running. Why go out there and trade for potential when the organization... Now, if I'm me and I go, well, if I see this great quarterback in college that's out there that's going to be the next guy, I don't see the guy from Cal being that guy.
You can get JT Barrett.
JT Barrett's not, that guy for sure. If I had like an Andrew Luck in waiting that's tearing it up in college football right now, I might look at that. But right now I look at from what I see, as Bob Quinn scouring the landscape of college football, there's not that many great quarterbacks.
You got Jim Bob Cooter, who's the QB whisperer. He can turn, hot garbage into, something beautiful, right? I mean, let's be honest. Going into this season, we all thought Matt Stafford was horrible, right? I mean, he might not have been the worst quarterback in all of the NFL, but we had multiple discussions on it where he was a middle third QB. He was somewhere between 10 and 20. Generally, we always decided he was 15, 16, 17. He was always right in there, right in that range. You could never count on him to make the big play. You could always count on him to turn the ball over at the most inopportune time. So now this season, this season he has grown up a little bit, and the Cleveland Browns, want him.
If I want to be ballsy and I want to make that splash, I'm not calling the Browns. I'm probably calling Dallas. My phone would light up to Dallas, and I'd be like, okay, we got a couple different scenarios. If you want Stafford, give me Dak Prescott and one of your linemen, or give me Dak Prescott.
They're not giving up Dak. Dak is going to be there forever. This is what they would give you. We'll give you Tony Romo.
Okay, Tony Romo and some first round picks and maybe a lineman. I would look at that a little bit more seriously than with the Cleveland Browns.
But again, now you're trading for a backup quarterback because you got Dak.
But you said your system. You're trading for a system guy and going that if I'm going to make that move, that I could sacrifice the level of talent at quarterback. So if I'm going to make a move, I don't need a superstar quarterback. I could take a Tony Romo.
Yeah, for you. But there's no way that Dallas is going to give up all that for a backup quarterback because they've got Dak Prescott. Unless Dak Prescott's leg and arm falls off for whatever reason, you're not making that trade if you're Dallas. But if you're Cleveland, who do you got? You got Cody Kessler and you got the corpse of Josh McCown. And that's about all you got, right? Believe me, I know, because I got Terrell Pryor and I got Gary Barnidge on my fantasy football team, and I'm struggling to make the playoffs here. So I understand what that QB situation looks like. So now I am Cleveland. I'm coming back to you now because apparently my first offer wasn't good enough. And I believe that Matt Stafford is the difference in our organization's years of futility to being something awesome and something dependable and reliable and making it to the playoffs year in and year out. So I'll give you 2017's first round pick for Cleveland. I'll give you 2017's third round pick. I will give you 2018's second round pick, and I'll give you 2018's fourth round pick. That's 4 draft picks.
Yeah, 4 draft picks. It's not bad. You're making your offer. It sounds good, but no. I think Matthew Stafford's worth more than that at this point.
I'll give you Josh McCown too. So now you got your backup.
Nope, I'm not taking the deal. I'm like, thank you, but I'm still looking elsewhere. You're gonna need multiple first rounders, and you're gonna need a talented guy. Maybe a receiver, lineman.
You do believe in Matt Stafford.
I do believe in Matt Stafford. I do believe
you would pony up to $25 million, no problem.
I would pony up to $25 million. At this point in time, we're just talking, is it going to be 25.5, 25.6? Is it going to be how many years extended? How much deferred money? How much can we pay you up front? And things like that. So I don't think
Amazing how 10 weeks changes your opinion.
No, I think that at this point in time, Matthew Stafford was trending upward. The only thing the last point that we were always talking about was the playoff success. That's all we were talking about, was that this is a guy that can play in the league. It's not a bust, but what we need is him to take that next step. But most people felt that the argument was if you surrounded him with more talent, he'd be okay.
All right, week 17, playing Green Bay, right? Green Bay comes to town, and you actually get them at home, which is awesome because you don't have to go to Lambeau and you don't have to freeze your tuchus off and you don't have to have snot sickles frozen to your face. Green Bay rolls in. Aaron Rodgers has looked absolutely abysmal this entire season. For some reason, James Stark gets hot, scores 2 touchdowns, and I don't know, Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers basically throws 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions this game. Green Bay's got 21 points on the board, 24 points. We'll say they actually get a field goal as well. So 24, we'll say 24-13. Matt Stafford throws a touchdown, and he does Aaron Rodgers one better by throwing 4 interceptions, 1 every single quarter. And the Lions missed the playoffs because of his one of those interceptions was a pick 6.
Yeah.
So Detroit blows the game, blows any chance of hosting a playoff game because they're not going to make a wild card because I think it's just too much competition.
With that narrative,
do you turn around and do you give them the $25 million?
With that in mind, I probably would make a tough, bold move and say play out 2017. I would give them the new deal. Play out 2017, and we'll talk.
What if Cleveland comes to you and offers
that same deal? Nope. No. Play out 17. I don't care how disgruntled you are. That extension ain't coming. If he plays that bad with that storyline and those stat lines, no way.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So, very good Lions debate, and that's going to be the talk. Everyone's having it. Stafford, is he worth it? Most people are going to say, yeah, I'm going in that camp. I'm basically starting the framework of getting the deal printed up. What the numbers and terms will be predicated on what he does the rest of the way. That's what's going to be.
So does Matt Stafford shine this Sunday?
Yes, of course. It's Jacksonville. I think that this is going to be one of those games where the Lions could play their C game and probably walk away with a 7-point victory. Jacksonville's just that bad. Unless the Lions really play bad and turn the ball over and they take 20 penalties and they rough the punter and they give Blake Bortles more chances and free yards, I don't think they're good enough. I think that the Lions are going to win in the neighborhood of 28-17.
This is a game that the Detroit Lions should win. I believe the Lions will win this game. Look, Jacksonville has 2 really interesting and promising wide receivers on that team. They've got running backs there, but for some reason, none of it's worked out this season. Blake Bortles looks like he's a good quarterback. Sometimes it's just one of those seasons, I think, where everybody has regressed. There was all this expectations for Jacksonville going into the year where you thought, hey, this offense is clicking. They're putting up points. They're able to move the ball down the field. If our defense can get a little bit better, it's going to be a good season. And I think everybody expected them to sit there and challenge for first place in their division. And it just, maybe the weight of the expectations have just kind of anchored this team down. They haven't been able to get out of their own way. I think the Detroit Lions and their run game will kind of get on track this game. I think that this offense is going to look very good against this Jacksonville defense. And don't be surprised if a guy like an Allen Hurns or an Allen Robinson sits there and scores a long touchdown on the Detroit Lions. I think that is probable and possible, but I think the Lions win this game. Actually, I believe and I know the Lions will win this game. I don't see them tripping up, not with everything that's been going on with them. They are the talk of the NFL right now. Everybody has them in their power rankings. Detroit, I think, actually believes that they are this good, which is weird. It's a weird place to be, especially if you're a Lions fan.
Why not us? It could be our year, man. Maybe the Lions make that run, and they're that team that just comes out of a little bit of obscurity and do some things at the biggest moments. Let's see. Let's take a quick timeout, come back. Looking forward to playing a round of Jock Jams, and then we'll talk Detroit Tigers to finish off this podcast. You're listening to the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I want to tell you about our newest sponsor, Team Top Cat Sales. Are you looking for team apparel for your high school, your club sports team, or corporation? Look no further than Top Cat Sales, located on the east side of Main Street in downtown Royal Oak, between 11 and 12 Mile. Through founder and former University of Michigan QB John Wangler's leadership, Top Cat Sales has developed a tradition of selling and distributing custom Adidas team apparel with the highest quality and best service. Get your organization, school, or club team all in with Adidas today by going to TopCatTeamSales.com. That's TopCatTeamSales.com. Also, follow Top Cat on Twitter at Team Top Cat. They don't want none. They don't want none of Doc and Jock. Thanks, everybody, for your continued support. Thank you for clicking that download button. My goodness, man. Lots of talk now about other podcasts that are doing some things, but all I got to say is we've been doing all that since 2014, baby. We started this in 2013 in September. Took a year to work out all the kinks, but, getting sponsors, getting donations, doing all that kind of thing, taking phone calls. That's nothing new, baby, if you've been a follower of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, sir. So keep it going. We're 171 episodes deep of this podcast. We got several other shows, and we're doing great things right now in college basketball and looking to expand and continuing our great success. And we thank you, and it's all due to the support that we got from everybody that listens, downloads, checks out, and votes on the polls that we run on our Twitter page, and votes on our high school polls and celebrating the great high school coaches and performances. So a lot of good things going on, a lot of wrinkles that I didn't think would happen with this project, and so far so good. No complaints.
Hey, we wouldn't be Doc and Jock if it wasn't for you listening, so we appreciate it.
Thank you. And now, this is the point of the show, what we call Jock Jams. A lot of topics to cover with the Jock. I'm curious to get his opinions on a lot of things, even maybe some things that occurred at the program that he supports. Check it out. This is Jock Jams. Sticking with the NFL and talking about some teams that didn't perform well at all this past Sunday. A couple teams that have been, really in the hot seat looking at what the heck they've been doing. One, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Two, the Green Bay Packers. I mean, the Steelers, the biggest thing is consistency. From one week to the next, you have no clue what you're going to get with them. Mike Tomlin is a little bit on the hot seat and under fire because the team looks a little bit undisciplined at moments. You don't know from possession to possession what they're going to do, and week to week, they look like a different team. Sometimes they look like they're a world beater, and sometimes they look like they're bottom feeders. And then you got the Green Bay Packers, and something's amiss there. When you watch them, you look at it and you go, something's not right, whether it be coaching, whether it be slightly Aaron Rodgers' skills eroding. But the biggest talking points coming away, I believe, from the past week in NFL football is, should Mike McCarthy and Mike Tomlin be let go? Is it time for regime changes at those two clubs?
Let's look at it this way, all right? These are two head coaches that have won a ton. Mike McCarthy's won a Super Bowl, 5 division titles. Overall, his record's 116, 67, and 1. That's a winning coach. Is he struggling this year? Absolutely. Is it his fault? I think some of it is. I think some of it's Aaron Rodgers' fault. Also, I think some of it is just due to injuries. And I think that at this point in time, this offense, because I believe it's all on the offense right now, has to mature. There has to be another wrinkle added to this offense, whether it's Eddie Lacy being out of shape and overweight last season, coming in this season getting hurt. There has to be some type of a maturity, and they have to do a little bit better job drafting some more depth on this team because, as we know, injuries are going to happen in the NFL. So I think Mike McCarthy has to maybe take a step back, maybe look at bringing somebody else in to handle some of the offensive coordinating for this team, maybe add something to it because this usually is a very good offense. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, top 5, top 10 quarterback in the league. He's been exceptional over the long haul. This year, not so much. There's some regression there. And whether it's Aaron Rodgers not doing what he needs to do in the offseason or if it's just there's not enough around him at this point. I think this offense has leaned so heavily on Aaron Rodgers that you need to start putting some pieces around him because I think the league's finally catching up to him. And now Mike Tomlin, he's won 2 Super Bowls. One as a defensive backs coach with Tampa Bay, and one as the head coach of Pittsburgh. He's also won 4 division titles as Pittsburgh's head coach. He's 102 and 62. I mean, these are 2 winning coaches. Both of them are exceptional at what they do. The real issue with Pittsburgh is the complete opposite of what's going on with Green Bay. It's all on their defense. Their defense is not good. That offense is incredible. You could sit there. It's like Madden offense. You got Ben Roethlisberger dropping back, tossing the rock down to Antonio Brown, tossing it to receiver number 3 on their team because they've got just guys. It doesn't even matter. You could be any geek off the street. They're going to pull you in, slap a helmet on you, and hey, you just go run this slant. We're going to get you the ball. You're going to score a touchdown. It's that defense. Since Dick LeBeau has left, this defense has ranked in the bottom of the NFL. It's been brutal. Absolutely brutal. So Mike Tomlin's got to take a little bit of a step back, maybe put his defensive coordinator hat back on and try to really figure out how he can make this defense better, whether it's through the draft. Maybe it's executing a trade for a big-name defensive back. Because when I look at what they've got going on with their front 7, I think it's solid. I don't think it's great by any shakes of the imagination. I think it's solid. But their secondary gets picked apart every single week I'm watching a game. Just gets torn to shreds. So I don't think the coaches for either one of these teams need to go anywhere. I think that they have to maybe take a step back and just kind of reevaluate what's going on. Again, Mike Tomlin, defensive coach, Mike McCarthy, an offensive coach. These are things that they know and that they know how to do, and I think maybe their hubris is the reason why these teams are failing. Maybe they think they know what's going on and they know everything. Maybe they got to take a step back and bring another set of eyes and to really sit there and reevaluate and either get some more talent in here or just let somebody else take control.
Jock leading the patience parade this week. Very interesting.
Those are some winning coaches, bro. I mean, look, if a guy like Jim Caldwell can stick around in Detroit, these guys absolutely deserve, and are warranted to stick around in Green Bay and in Pittsburgh.
Over the weekend, Michigan faced a tough challenge, but most people thought that they would come away with at least a victory versus Iowa when they went to play on the road at Iowa City. And unfortunately, they did not perform well by all accounts. Everything didn't go as according to plan. They didn't play their best football. Iowa obviously was revved up. They wanted to play a much better brand of football than what they showed the last week versus Penn State. And they went out and defeated the number 2 ranked team in the country. How bad of a loss was this? And do you think this really derails Michigan's opportunity to win the Big Ten or even get to the National College Football Playoff?
Let's look at it this way. Michigan picked the prime opportunity. The best spot to lose was this week when they played Iowa, because everybody around them, except for Ohio State and Alabama, lost. So as you've seen when the college football rankings came out, they weren't penalized for the loss. Look, in my estimation, yeah, they should have been. I was really surprised at what the college football committee did and where they ranked them. They left them at 3. That shocked me. I was totally flabbergasted by this. But what this loss shows is that you can be beaten. I think this is a good thing for Michigan. I think it's great that they lost. I don't think it helps their what they want to do going for an undefeated season, going into the playoffs, winning the Big Ten championship, and all these things. I don't think it helps that. But I think it helps get you back on track, because going into this game, they were absolutely crushing opponents, just dominating them. Their defense was giving up 11 points a game. Their defense only gave up 12 this game because 2 of those were on the offense when they got safetied. This is a good reset point for this Michigan team. Does it suck that Wilton Spate might be done for the season? I don't think he's done for the season. I think it's more of an AC sprain. Looking at what I've seen on the sidelines and him being able to go back and play, they're talking about it being a broken collarbone. If it was a broken collarbone, he wouldn't have been able to strap up the pads and go in and play that final series. This looks like it's an AC sprain, and it's a non-throwing shoulder, so it shouldn't affect him all that much. You shoot it up with some cortisone, you ice it down, you just kind of deal with the pain and you play through it. I think he'll be out there. Probably won't be out there versus Indiana this week. I think he'll be out there versus Ohio State, unless O'Korn does amazing things. If O'Korn does outstanding things, then you'll probably lean on O'Korn against Ohio State with a short leash to pull him and put Spate back in. But I think it was good. I think it was good that they lost. I was very unhappy when they did lose, because this is a game that I thought they should have won. You know, I mean, you end up leaving with a whole bunch of egg on your face now. So that sucks. But you weren't penalized for it because you picked a great day to drop this game, because everybody ahead of you and everybody behind you lost too. So now you're still in prime position and you control your own destiny. Get everything back on track, get prepared for that Ohio State game after you pop Indiana this weekend, and sit there, beat Ohio State, and then look forward to the Big Ten championship game and just handle your business. It's all still in front of you. It's just like MSU last season.
Do you think O'Korn is going to be, labeled a game manager? Are they going to let him do some things? Or is he going to be, is he going to last these next 2 weeks? Or do you see some more Shane Morris if he falters?
I don't think Sugar Shane's getting in at all. But look, John O'Korn has thrown for 13 of 18 with 2 touchdowns in garbage time this season. He's the same freshman who threw for over 3,000 yards and 28 TDs 3 seasons ago. He just has to make good decisions on the field. That's the reason why he's not starting over Wilton Spate. It's just his decision-making. Wilton Spate seemed to get the offense a little bit faster and just be a little bit more efficient with it. So I think John O'Korn's going to be fine. They're going to run the ball a little bit more, I think, and they're going to lean a little bit more on the defense. I don't think he'll be a game manager, but they're going to definitely be running the ball more and leaning on the defense to sit there and get the win. You don't want to sit there and put the ball in O'Korn's hand and be like, hey, you got to go win this for us. I mean, that may happen against Ohio State if Spate can't play, but John O'Korn, I don't think he's going to necessarily be a game manager. I think they'll still take their chances down the field because that's what this offense does. They like to run the ball. They'll lull you to sleep, and then, hey, they're going to pop you for 25, 30, 40 yards down the field, and that's how this offense wins. That's the one thing that they couldn't do against Iowa this past week. The chances were there. There were about 5 or 6 chances downfield that they sat there, and if the receivers could have just hauled in a pass, or if Wilton Spaeth was just a little bit more accurate and on time, this game would be totally different. We wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
All right, very interesting stuff. No, literally, it could not have gone much more perfectly for Michigan, when you have a loss. You don't move at all in the polls. You lose in a week where the number 2, 3, 4, and several other top 25 programs lose. It's not bad at all. I mean, when Michigan State lost, their ranking dropped. They dropped them out of the top 10. So it's unbelievable what can happen when you have a solid season like that. And Michigan, you said it exactly right. Perfect timing. If you're going to have a loss, lose to Iowa, and just everything's still ahead of them. And let's see what happens if they can rebound from a tough injury, and we'll see how well Jim Harbaugh has his backups prepared going forward. All right, let's talk about the Detroit Pistons. Speaking of night and day, my goodness, that's a ball club that looks like 2 different teams at home versus when they play on the road. Now, that's a team that just got off the schneid. They got their first victory on the road versus Denver. What you've seen was, my goodness, this is a team that plays a little bit sloppily on defense, struggles a little bit offensively, but when they're at home, I was very surprised, and honestly to say that I was surprised that they played that well versus OKC. I thought that OKC was going to come in and do some things, but what is going on with the Pistons at home versus what they do on the road? Where that right now, at this point in time, they haven't lost a single game at home.
It's real simple. It's all defense. This team is completely different at home than when they're on the road. When they're at home, they give up just under 86 points a game, which is outstanding. If you can hold your opponents to 90 points or less a game, you're going to get a win 9 out of 10 times. And that's what the Pistons are showing you right now. On the road, they're giving up almost 107 points per game. That's unbelievable. It's almost a 21-point difference from being at home and being at somebody else's house. It's absolutely insane. If they can sit there and tighten up on defense when they go on the road, this team will start to get some W's. You've seen it against Denver. They sat there and they ended up holding Denver to, I believe it was 86 points is what I think it was. So this team, if they can sit there and get everything put together on the defensive end of the ball, they're going to be okay. And they're just not that talented, or not talented enough, I should say, to sit there and go into somebody else's house and just try to roll them every single game. I lied. It was 95 points against Denver. But still, they were able to put up 106 in that game. But they're just not offensively talented enough to sit there and be able to put 105, 106 points up every single game. And when they play on the road as opposed to when they play at home, it's only a difference of 3 buckets. That's all it is. So you just got to tighten up on defense and keep doing what you're doing on offense, and you're going to be A-okay. And that's really what it boils down to. This team has always had its identity, whether it was the bad boy Pistons, whether it was going to work Pistons, or whether it's build the effing wall Pistons. It's just play good defense. Defense will translate into wins. It's the way this team's put together. You got to play on both ends of the court. That's what Stan Van Gundy wants from you. And if you don't show up on the defensive side, you're going to lose the game. And that's really what it boils down to.
If you peek at the upcoming road schedule, of the next 10 road games, how many wins do you think they get?
I haven't even taken a peek at the upcoming road schedule. Off the top of my head, without knowing who they're playing.
Well, hold on, take a second, look at it.
All right, let me pull it up here real quick. Oh wow, this is pretty brutal. So they're gonna be traveling to OKC. Charlotte should be a win. Boston will be a tough game. If you play well, you can get a win. Atlanta, tough game. Dallas at Washington. I'm gonna say, because they've got some clunkers in there. I don't think Charlotte's that good of a team. Boston's kind of in that middle range right now, where I think Boston's kind of on par with Detroit. Some days they're good, some days they're eh. I think the Pistons can go 6-4 on the road trip there. And I think if they can sit there and pull off 6 wins, again, just play defense. That's all you got to do. Play defense, play strong. Your defense will translate into offense with fast break points. This team is built that way. It's the way Stan Van Gundy puts his rosters together. So I think they can do it. It's just they got to shore up things on the defensive side of the ball.
So a team that's won 1 road game so far with a 6-5 record.
6-4. They're gonna go 6-4. Put it down.
6-4 for the next 10 road games.
Call me out on Twitter if I don't do it right.
I don't think so. I got them going 2-8 probably in the next.
Oh boy.
They're gonna continue to. What I see is more of the same. They're gonna play solidly at home. They're more comfortable. And this is what happens when you got a team that's without their best player, is that they're more comfortable, the routines are more solidly in place at home versus on the road. I think that's where they miss Reggie Jackson the most, is when they're on the road, where he could kind of step up and do some things. So I'm going to say more of the same. Like I said, you're a little bit more optimistic regarding the Pistons on the road, and we'll see what happens. I will see if it's in the middle there between you and I, but I think they're going to struggle continuously on the road, and you think they're going to get some wins.
We'll come back and we'll look at this December.
Couple weeks.
December 21st-ish.
Yeah.
We'll come back and take a look at it and see what's going on with them.
Yep, we'll get the validation that I was right, like usual. All right, great round of Jock Jams, sir. I know you always bring it. Very good stuff. We'll take our final timeout, come back, and we'll shift gears. That was the word I was looking for, shift gears. It just didn't come to me. We'll shift gears, and we'll talk about the Detroit Tigers. Stay with us. You're listening to the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Doc and Jock here for Fanatic U. If you're looking for some sweet sports swag and you love your Detroit teams, and I mean you really love your Detroit teams, you got to check out fanaticu.com and get the coolest gear out there and rock your Red Wings shirt, rock your Lions shirt, rock your Piston apparel. Wear it till the wheels fall off. Michigan State, you know what? They got it too. Check out Fanatic U. They have 6 locations all over Metro Detroit. Check them out, fanaticu.com.
Yeah, we coming now. Come on. Yeah. That's right. We put it down. It's like a family in here, just a little disabled. Putting it down, we lay them out on the table. Yeah. Who's in the house? The brothers in the house. Gotta turn it on out, let you know what we about. Kinda like Cain and Abel. A bit unstable, don't be breaking the brain. Break the whole damn table.
Rolling right along, episode 171. Great podcast. Thank you so much again for everybody that downloads, that checks out our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. We wouldn't be able to do the things that we're doing without your continued support. So if you like what you're listening to, just tell 1 or 2 other people. That's how we continue to keep growing this thing organically. That's how we've done it primarily. And if you're watching games, definitely check out our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, the most, I believe, interactive Twitter page in all the city of Detroit. Check us out, message us. We read each and every one, good or bad. Speaking of challenges, Al Avila is going to be really responsible for, in essence, retooling this Detroit Tigers team. When we look at it, the money's not going to be there anymore. Before, he was flush with cash. He was able to go out in his first offseason and make a splash for a couple guys, Jordan Zimmerman and Justin Upton. One of them panned out. The other struggled through his first year with an injury problem, a la Jordan Zimmerman. But now the edict has come down for whatever reason that the payroll must come down. And everyone was really kind of shocked and surprised, a little bit angry that Cameron Maybin was, the first guy to go. There's more talks and rumors about who's next. Is it going to be JD? Is it going to be Justin Verlander? What's going to be the marketplace for a guy like Justin Verlander, Miguel Cabrera, Ian Kinsler? So the big name guys are being talked about, and we're hearing every single day of which teams are coming a calling, whether it be Houston for Miguel Cabrera, the Dodgers are coming a calling potentially for Justin Verlander. You have the Giants maybe looking at making a phone call to pick up some guys here from the Detroit Tigers. It's one of those things where you look at it and you go, okay, it's going to be deconstructed, and what is the philosophy going to be going forward? Al Avila is going to be responsible for turning over the philosophy a little bit, instead of buying players in terms of going out there and just plucking out the best free agents. His job is going to be to develop talent, draft well, and get the most value he can from the guys he's going to let go. The question I had asked you was, and I think the first thing that I think people are now talking about is, do we trust Al Avila to do the job? And I know I think I get a sense of where you're at a little bit with it, but at this point in time, the way I look at it is that I think Al Avila might not have been so comfortable with so much money and so much funds to go out there with. Now, he's got a lot of experience. I mean, he was under Dave Dombrowski, but I think his strength might be, and he might be even better at going out there and developing young talent, finding a group of guys that can come here collectively and do something. So at this point in time, the question is, do we trust Al Avila to build and rebuild this Detroit Tigers team. At this point in time, I say, yeah, I still trust him because the guys that he brought in, now there were some misses for sure. There were some big swings and misses that he brought in terms of some of the pitchers. But at the same time, some of the other guys he brought in did some things. And before injuries, Jordan Zimmerman was also a productive player. And you got to remember, they were within 1 or 2 games of being right there at the threshold of the playoffs. So I trust Al Avila at this point in time to go out there and sell off some of the high-priced guys to bring some talent back. The question will be, what kind of philosophy is he looking for when he goes out there? Are we looking for a more defensive, pitching-oriented team? Are we looking for a bunch of, maybe 5-tool guys that are just under superstar status? I'm very interested to see what kind of player that I'm kind of interested if they trade JV, what kind of player comes back. But at this point in time, as we chat, I trust Al Avila.
I'm a little bit on the fence, and I'm totally apprehensive. This is the same guy who brought you Jared Saltalamacchia, who batted 171 throughout the season. Trusted his scouting department, who brought you Mike Pelfrey, who was absolutely atrocious. Brought you in Mark Lowe, who was shaky at best. So there are some questions I think you need to hold Al Avila to, because, again, he's made just as many good as bad decisions in his tenure with his first year here. And it didn't help get you to the playoffs. If anything, it sat there and it hindered you. You're right. Jordan Zimmerman, when he was firing on all cylinders, was very productive. Down the stretch, not productive at all, right? And then you got a backup catcher who can't swing a baseball bat, Mike Pelfrey, who hurt this team because he would go out there and he would lose games, or he sat there and made you lean so heavily on your bullpen, which was shaky, which consisted of a guy like Mark Lowe. But in that bullpen, you had your closer, K-Rod, who had a very good game. He also brought you in Cameron Maben, who, when he wasn't injured, was an integral part of this team, this offense, and I believe just this clubhouse. They really seemed to gravitate towards him. So for everything good he did some things bad. That makes me concerned going forward, because now you're going to be trading away guys like possibly a Justin Verlander, a Miguel Cabrera, a JD Martinez, possibly an Ian Kinsler. And these are all guys who have helped contribute to getting wins the past couple seasons. And these are all guys who basically the foundation of this team is built upon. So now you trade these guys away, and you can't sit there and you can't go 50% when you're sitting there trading them away. Because if you do, you just sat there and retarded the growth of this team, and you impeded the progress that you were looking to make. Because if you're going to trade a guy like Justin Verlander for pitching prospect A, pitching prospect B, and outfield prospect C, and only outfield prospect C hits, what are you going to do? Because you were counting on these prospects to actually come through for you. Like going into this season right now, I'm really concerned about what Daniel Norris is. I'm really concerned about what Boyd's going to be. I mean, these guys showed some flashes last season, but didn't do it like Michael Fulmer did it. So what are they? At best, are they a 3rd, 4th, 5th starter? Is that what we've got here? I mean, because you traded quite a bit away to get these guys here, and yeah, it works out great because you got a rookie of the year out the deal. But what are these guys? These guys were also the meat and potatoes of that deal. It's like getting a steak, and then you're like, you know what? Can I get a side of mashed potatoes with that? And they're like, you know what? We're going to go make those out of a box, so give us a second. And they taste like cardboard mixed with water. It's just not good. So I've got some major concerns for Al Avila moving forward. It's just, again, he can't hit 50%. He's got to hit somewhere near 75% on the prospects he brings in. And that's kind of where you kind of get into this little issue where we're going to be trading away these high-priced guys, and we're going to be looking to sit there and shrink payroll. Prospects don't always pan out. I mean, the Tigers organization is a prime example of it. I mean, you had guys that where everybody sat there. Do you remember Jacob Turner? You remember hearing how great of a player he was going to be? He never panned out. He wasn't that good. I was surprised.
This is bad.
Yeah, I was surprised he was still in the league. I was like, what? He's still in the league? I had no idea. I think he plays for Atlanta. I had to sit there and go jump on the internet and Google it. I was like, Jacob Turner is like the same one from the Tigers? Sure enough, it was. I was like, wow, I didn't even know he was still in the league. You miss more times than you hit with prospects. That's why drafting and building your farm system is such kind of a crapshoot here. And the Tigers haven't done a good enough job of that over the course of the long haul. I just don't trust their scouting department. And Al Avila was part of that scouting department.
See, I have a little bit more faith in Al Avila because I think that it's always tough when you come into a situation where you got to really hit on every single guy that you put your money into. And I think that Justin Upton has created value. I think Jordan Zimmerman still has value. So I think he spent wisely. He did give the extra year to Pelfrey, which everyone is a little bit baffled by. Mark Lowe hasn't panned out. But you got to remember, these are new situations. Maybe in this upcoming year, they show a little bit more and with different roles. But I do agree with you in that there should be a little bit of concern and a little bit of skepticism regarding what Al Avila does. But so it sounds like from what you're saying, you kind of want them to really get a plethora of prospects because of the sheer fact that you miss on so many. That just because of the nature that you are taking flyers on guys, you want more. So let's say for Justin Verlander, you'd want maybe 2 to 3 prospects that are pretty solid.
Exactly. They've got to be, look, each organization does things a little bit differently. The Tigers are absolutely brutal with drafting players. I don't think they have anybody in Baseball America's top 100. So if you're going to go to an organization and you're going to trade a guy like Justin Verlander, who had a Cy Young candidate season, he's won a Cy Young before, and it looks like he has found his second prime, because we already know that he had his prime, got hurt, and now he's having that comeback around season this last season, and it looks like he's going to carry it on for the next couple seasons. If you're going to trade a guy like that who can go to another club and be their ace, yeah, I want multiple high-end prospects. They've got to basically be, I need 2 to 3 guys that are your top 5 prospects. That's what I want back. Same thing for a guy like Miguel Cabrera.
At the same time, I'm kind of interested to see whether, a guy like Jimenez comes up. The rumors are that probably he's not going to be with the Tigers at the beginning of the year, but they want to continue to develop him. I kind of want to see what this team, I'm ready to go. You know what? If you're going to rebuild, go all the way with it. Play younger guys and, bring up guys from the minors and see what you got. I have a little bit more confidence that this team is going to be a little bit more competitive. I think that with the starting rotation at the top end, if you keep JV, it's not too bad with Fulmer, JV, Zimmerman. That's not too bad at all. And then if Norris or Boyd, if they all hit, you got 5 starters that could really do some things. Now all you need is a bunch of guys that can be clutch and not so much boom or bust, a little bit more consistent, where your backup catcher doesn't hit 171, hits a little bit more in the 250 range, and then you continue the evolvement of the progression of Nick Castellanos, who came on. Obviously, the Tigers catcher, James McCann, has to evolve, and offensively he's got to do a little bit more things, but I do think that collectively, I feel like people feel like the hill is a lot higher than it really is. If you can get 4 to 6 prospects and a couple of them hit, you're okay. If you get a couple of lower price free agents and you bring up some guys from the minors, I do think you have a lineup that can still do some things. And then you drastically improve the defense, the bullpen, and the starting pitching. The ERA comes down. I think you're closer than a lot of people think that they are. Now, what I'm saying is, they're far away from winning the World Series, but I don't think they're that far away from competing to get back into the postseason.
See, I'm kind of right there with you with all of it. It's just, again, you're looking to shed some payroll. You're looking to get rid of high-priced contracts.
Right.
So Justin Verlander, Miguel Cabrera, Miguel Cabrera absolutely clutch, drove in a ton of runs this year.
Right.
And he's basically the centerpiece of your batting lineup, and you've got guys around him who hit better because he's there. So now you get rid of him. What are you expecting from a prospect, or what are you expecting from whoever you get to replace him? This guy right here is best hitter probably all time, arguably.
And I think that's where they might field the calls for JV and Miggy, but the guys that most likely will be let go, I think, are Ian Kinsler and JD Martinez. Those guys probably could get you some value at this point in time. So I think that I'm more comfortable trading the likes of Ian Kinsler and JD Martinez versus Justin Verlander and Miguel, because it's going to be a little bit harder. The money basically restricts you to only a couple teams that are going to be dialing you up. Whereas Ian Kinsler and JD, you got some teams with some organizational depth that can call you up and make some moves. So I'm thinking, if you ask me, I know most likely JD won't be on this team. That's probably the guy that you can almost pencil in as being gone. The rest of them, you got to hear the offers. And so I think that everyone can kind of relax a little bit in that. I know the talks are there, but I don't think I've heard anything seriously where it's so hot that the move is going to be made. So right now, where it's at is that he's taking the calls. He's kind of assessing what the value is and what he could get for these guys. But I think in the end, JD will be the guy that goes because of the nature of the contract that they know his money is going to be coming up huge and they don't want to pay it.
See, I'm in the complete opposite of you right now. I would feel much better if I was trading the likes of a Justin Verlander and a Miguel Cabrera over a guy like a JD Martinez. JD Martinez is the exact guy that you're looking to trade Verlander and Cabrera for, because you want somebody who's younger. You want somebody who can hit the ball. You want somebody who can field his position. And Martinez can do all of that. Now, I'm not saying JD Martinez is exceptional in the field, and I'm not saying he is exceptional at the plate, but he's better than average at the plate. He's better than average in the field. And right now, he doesn't cost you an arm and a leg. I know you're going to have to re-up his contract after next season, but you can come to some agreement with that, and he can be your power stick in the middle of your lineup. Now, you get rid of a guy like a Cabrera, and look, Miguel Cabrera's been exceptional, and I've been on record saying I think he's going to put up David Ortiz-like numbers, better than Ortiz down the back end of his career here. But when he's making almost $30 million a season, you need to free up some money. You can go out with $30 million, you can get at least 2 or 3 more impact players for this team. Would it suck to let him go? Absolutely. But you know what? If the Yankees came a-calling, remember, the Yankees are supposed to have one of the best farm systems in all of baseball, especially after their purge that they had last season. I call up the Yankees because he would fit right in New York. New York would love him. Oh, yeah. The Steinbrenners? Absolutely. And with the way that ballpark is made up, I mean, that dude's going to be eclipsing numbers left and right because it's so small. So absolutely, I'd call, hey, you looking for Miguel? Let's see what you got. You know what I'm saying? You could probably pull 4 or 5 prospects from them, high-end prospects. Justin Verlander, you could trade him to L.A., send him out there with Clayton Kershaw. You don't think Kate Upton wants to go to L.A.? You don't think he's not a little bit hoity-toity and starstruck? Believe me, that dude does not hang out in Detroit in the offseason. That guy is hanging out someplace in California or New York all the time. Believe me, that guy's nose is so far up in the air, it's ridiculous. So yeah, he would totally welcome a trade out to L.A., and then you keep a guy like a JD Martinez, and you know what? You extend him for the next 4 years. You say, look, we want to keep you here. We're going to extend you the next 4 years. And you give that guy somewhere like a $17 million contract, $18 million contract, if you can agree to something like that. And look, you got your right fielder set up. You just brought in possibly 8 new prospects, and hopefully those guys are able to come up, maybe not immediately, but sooner than later. So you're not kind of just patchworking a team together, but you can get some production right there, and you just shed $60 million in payroll. And you got some guys to come in and replace.
But you got to remember that JD knows the marketplace, and I think the reason why that JD's name's getting bantered about is because they offered him a decent contract, and he's like, no. And so I think you got another Max Scherzer situation going on where he knows his value. If he hits another 30 home runs, it's going to be $25 million. So I think that's why you just get something for him. And I don't think they want to get rid of JD. It's just that the marketplace is going to be blown up. He's at the top end of the scale, and they need more middle-of-the-road kind of guys. Another reason why we can have confidence in Al Avila is that he is an integral part of the reason why Michael Fulmer was brought here.
Hold on. Before we go there, the names that have been mentioned for Tigers players, while you were talking, I was able to pull something up, and it kind of lends to what I'm talking about. The Yankees have the number 2 overall farm system in all of Major League Baseball. The Astros have the number 3 farm system in all of Major League Baseball. Those are 2 teams who want Miguel Cabrera. The Dodgers have the number 5 overall farm system. All right. The Nationals, that's a team. The Red Sox, it's another team that's been mentioned with Miguel Cabrera. I mean, these are all teams that are looking for these guys. The Braves have had interest in different players that the Tigers have. So these are the top 10. These teams are all in the top 10, top 9 actually, of farm systems in all of the major leagues. I mean, you can make a trade and you can get some talent here to sit there and replenish the system and help to do what they're looking to do, or what I believe they're looking to do. Remember, the Red Sox not too long ago sat there and they had a big purge where they unloaded guys like Alex Gonzalez, Carl Crawford. You know what they did the very next season? They won the World Series. So again, like you said, I don't think they're that far off. They just got to unload some of these heavy contracts and get some young talent in. Now, I'm sorry, back to Michael Fulmer.
No, I was going to say, I'm just fascinated to see, of those 4 guys that we talked about, who's going to be back. And that's going to be Al Avila's job. And, a guy that was brought in that we all said, hey, look what he's done. Michael Fulmer wins the AL Rookie of the Year, comes out of obscurity. This year, he was, started the year in the minors. Didn't even make the club out of spring training. He was a highly touted prospect. And by now, you'd say, okay, after his first year, so far, so good. You can't call him a bust. He's a guy that came through. And now he's a guy that's going to have some more responsibilities in year 2. I wouldn't go so far as to call him maybe the ace of the staff, because Jordan Zimmerman, and if JV's still here, will take over that job. But firmly planted, he's a solid number 3. And I think he's a much better upgrade than Anibal Sanchez was at that role. And I think that he's a guy that can handle the pressure. And I think that in his second year, if you make him the number 1 and the ace, I think that's too much for a guy that has only played, 3/4 of a season, and a guy that you had on a pitch count or pitch inning situation where you were limiting him. I think that with him, it's one of those things where we can pump the brakes. We just want to continue to see him evolve. He's got the stuff. He's got the makeup. This is a guy that really allowed the hurt of losing a David Price and a Yoenis Cespedes to kind of be eased away because he was the centerpiece. And you got 2 other pitchers in Daniel Norris and Boyd that if one of those 2 pans out, it's looking like a very good trade for you, and that's the kind of trade you're looking for going forward. So a guy like Michael Fulmer is a great story, well-deserved for him that he won the AL Rookie of the Year. I think that he's got the makeup. And by all accounts, sounds like a hard-working dude where you hear stories in the offseason, dude's plumbing and working, not just kind of vacationing and doing some things. So I like everything so far that I've heard regarding Michael Fulmer. I think that he handled the pitch count situation okay. He had his regular ups and downs in his rookie season, but with that upside, if you can get 1 or 2 more guys like that, if you let go of some of these higher-priced guys, the Tigers will be okay.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think him being the ace of this staff going into next season might be a little bit too much too soon. Got to remember, he only threw 159 innings last season. Like you said, he didn't make the big club out of spring training. They didn't call him up till May. And once they called him up, he took fire. He was outstanding, but he's only 23 years old, and this was the most innings he's pitched in a season. So I think going into next season, again, they'll watch his innings, he'll progress. Maybe there might be a little bit of a regression because a lot of times when you have a lot of success your very first season up in the big leagues, the next season you take a little bit of a step back because you're working on different things. You're trying to figure out new pitches. There's a book out there on you, so you got to kind of adjust a little bit. But I think by the time his 3rd full season rolls around with this club, he will be your ace. He will be your starting pitcher who is going out there every 5th day, and he is commanding the ball, taking the lead. He will be your next Justin Verlander on this club. I just think right now, you're probably right. He's probably, if they do unload Justin Verlander, again, if some buts, candy, and nuts, if they get rid of Justin Verlander, Michael Fulmer will be your number 2. Jordan Zimmerman's going to be your number 1, and whether you want him to or not, it's just the way it's going to be because they don't want to put all that pressure on a young kid. Again, he's 23. What were you doing when you were 23? Most days during the week, I couldn't hold my head up straight because I was too hungover from the night before. You know what I'm saying? It'd be too much pressure for a kid of this age. And again, hasn't even eclipsed 180 innings in a season yet. So you don't want to sit there and you don't want to dump all that on him too soon. But I think by the time year 3 rolls around, this is going to be your guy. This is who this starting pitching staff will be molded around. He's going to be the dude. Now, if Daniel Norris and Matt Boyd can kind of figure some things out here and they can sit there and perform, maybe not to the standards that Michael Fulmer gave you last season, but something to where they can lock down either that 4th or 5th or maybe even that 3rd pitching spot, this pitching staff's going to be okay. It's going to be fine. And I like what Michael Fulmer said when he won the award. He gave a lot of credit to a guy like Justin Verlander, who he said taught him a lot. And you're right. He seems like he's a humble, down-to-earth guy. He's out there plumbing with his dad and just doing things, you know what I'm saying? Like things that me and you, well, not you, but things that I would do. You know what I'm saying? 'Cause I don't ever see you lifting a wrench. That's not in your DNA. So he's an interesting cat, interesting character. And again, well-deserved Rookie of the Year for him. Going forward, he will be the centerpiece, just not next season.
Exactly, man. Woo. Good stuff. Good podcast, sir. Man, we just fire up the mics, turn on the office lights, and an hour and 20 minutes just flies by, man.
Every single week, man. It just,
good stuff.
I feel like we could do it for 4 hours.
For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Go Michigan State, only lose by 60. Let's go.
Go Michigan. Get prepared for Ohio State.
This was locker room talk.
Second deck.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me.